If you were the devil, how would you destroy the young minds of the next generation?
Promote misinformation, suppress education, and discourage curiosities. Sounds like our news channels these days.
You didn't find it odd that your child was up at 2 a.m. doing stupid videos?
He just had a bunch of pacifiers and he just kept taking it out of his mouth and throwing it out of the crib. So I just took them all and threw them out.
She's turning 2 soon. I plan on getting her out of my room, the crib out.
So basically, if I walk into your house and I get itchy, you have an infestation.
They're just yelling. They don't even hear you. They're not even processing. They're not even doing anything. They're just yelling. Hello and welcome back.
Hi, welcome back. Today we're going to be discussing a couple of cool topics, one of which is ghosts in the nursery. So we're going back to parenting and how it affects childhood experiences, and we're going to kind of roll from there. So the Ghosts in the Nursery article focuses on how your past experiences as a child affect your parenting and your children in the future. There was one particular story that kind of stuck out to me. It was about Mary, in this case. I don't know if that's her real name.
Mary.
Not this Mary. But it was about a girl named Mary who was only 5.5 months old. Her mom was detached, and the child was just like not attaching to the mom either. And the mom just wanted to give up this child for adoption. And that's why she came in to seek help. So they did this whole evaluation on the mom, and the mom turned out to actually have a lot of psychological issues herself. She was very depressed. They found that she was very depressed. And it also
postpartum depression.
So they actually went into the mother's side of the story. So the mom herself was an abandoned child. So her mother suffered from postpartum psychosis shortly after her birth. She attempted suicide, which actually Mary's mom did as well. And then she spent nearly all of her life in a hospital and was barely known to her children. The mom of the girl was cared for by her aunt. And when the aunt could no longer care for her, she was shifted to the house of the maternal grandmother, where she received grudging care from the burdened, impoverished old woman. So the father was in and out of the family picture. They lived in poverty, and there was just a lot going on to this child didn't really have family or parents. And so she then met and married her husband, who also came from poverty and family disorders. They wanted something better for their life, basically. So they went through cycles of working and establishing like their careers. And then, they decided, they want to have a child. And so, but then Mary's mom actually cheated on the father. She had a brief affair. And her guilt over affair and the doubts of who the father is of this child,
it's like Santa Barbara,
became like an obsessive theme for her. And it was something that, like, I guess caused her depression. Basically, that's why she kind of wanted to give up this child. And so basically her own experience transferred to her parenting style, which was the abandoning parent.
Right. Well, that's usually the case. I think we often carry all our childhood trauma into adulthood, and it always shows up in various forms in our various relationships, either in your friendships, in your marriages, in your parenting.
Yeah.
You just carry, and also, they say children oftentimes what they see is what they're going to do.
Right.
They're not going to listen to what you're saying. They're going to replicate what you're doing. So if a child is constantly exposed to trauma, they don't know anything about they don't know anything else. They don't know any better. So they're going to carry that trauma, and then they're going to traumatize their child, and it's just going to continue unless they seek help and they understand that this is a problem for them now. And they need some sort of help, and they need some sort of guidance to break a cycle, because it is a vicious cycle.
Yeah, I guess I feel like there are, a lot of people who, when they go to through these traumatic experiences, they want something different for their kids.
Right.
So I don't think this is for everybody. I think, yes, it does to a certain extent. And I guess this goes back to how people handle stress and how they handle negativity. And I know a lot of people who went through like difficult situations growing up, and they're like amazing parents because they don't want that to repeat itself.
Difficult situations, not traumatic situations. Difficult situation, like just being, let's say, in a state of poverty. So you're growing up in a house, and it's hard to make ends meet, but your parents are still there, and you're still go to school and doing all these things. So that's an issue, but it's not a trauma because poverty is something that you have an ability to get out. Not everybody gets out of poverty, of course, but you have that ability.
Yeah.
If let's say somebody beats you, only will you have the ability to get out of that when you're older. But if they're beating you and beating you and beating you and beating you throughout your childhood, that's trauma.
Yeah.
That's something that you need a lot of help with later on, because then that becomes your norm. Being in a poverty situation, you understand that that's not the norm. But when you're getting traumatized, you start to adapt that as the norm. So I hit you, you hit them, they hit them. And it's just a vicious cycle. Personally, that's what I think.
Yeah.
That's why when they say that, post-traumatic disorders, it's a disorder because it's post-trauma. It now becomes a disorder, not just like an issue.
Right.
Because your brain...
I mean, I do know like a few people that have had traumatic experiences and that are fine. And I think in some instances it's like a mind of over matter.
Without therapy?
Without therapy.
But that's also, they had to have some sort of self-realization.
Yeah.
But
I feel
they
like
were exposed to whatever trauma that they were exposed to was not.
But I think in this case, like of the mother, obviously, like she had probably postpartum depression because the baby was so small, and
she probably didn't get any help.
Right? No, she didn't until she came here. But at the same time, I feel like if you were abandoned as a child, why would you want to abandon your child if you know what it's like growing up in that situation?
I don't know, because you don't know any better.
What do you mean? But you know what you do know, because you know what that situation is like.
We're just gonna go rogue today.
We are gonna. No, I feel like you know what that situation is like as a child. You were a child who grew up in a home where both parents sort of abandoned you. You were hopping like home to home between your grandma, your aunt, and then whoever else could take care of you. And you know how hard it was, and you know how traumatic it was for you, obviously, to be the type of adult that you are now. And then,
how did you realize that it's traumatic for you if this is your whole life and this is what you know?
Well, then you become an adult.
Right.
Now you're out of that situation because you're with somebody now. You're both working together. You have that support system.
The same type of person as her.
I guess, but then why have the child? If you're going to be like, we don't want to, but actually the dad didn't want to sign over the rights. That's the only reason the child was not put up for adoption. The dad was completely against it.
Right.
So he didn't want to give up the rights to the baby because maybe the dad is the one, because he went through that situation, was the one that realized like, I don't want the same life for my child.
Right.
Because I feel like as parents, I think regardless of the situation, we always want better for our kids.
Sure.
Than anything like you yourself went through, or what things that you see out there, you want to do better for your kid. So I think,
but
like, at what point
you have to, what time period is this?
This is an older article.
You want better because it's always in your face. It's in your face on social media. You're watching the TikToks, and it's, bottles and models, and everything is just so glamorous.
Everybody wants to have a model and a bottle.
Everything is just so glamorous all the time.
Yeah.
So even from like a very young age, you're like, okay, well, this is cool, and this is like glamorous, and I want this, and I want that. But when we were growing up, we didn't have that.
Yeah.
We had, the perfect TV families, like Full House. And that's what we wanted.
Right.
Our family. So if we didn't have that in our families, we had something to look up to and mimic. So that's why we would want better, because we didn't have that. If we didn't have that. Not we, but if we didn't have that, you had your TV perfect family.
Yeah.
And that's what you would want to replicate. But today, it's not like that. So when did this happen? Maybe this was before TV time.
No, this was like in the 90s, I believe the article was released. But again, but at any point, there's always something. I mean, now, yeah, this wasn't now. Now, I don't think there's even any idealization about a family unit. You're like, oh, you don't need to have a family. You could just live your life and that's it.
Right.
That's really what it is. I mean, that's what it is. Everybody's like more independent and
well, today the idea of family changed.
Yeah.
Because, you know, even in the 90s, it was mom, dad, brother, sister, dog, grandma, grandpa, like, and it was always packaged like that.
Yeah.
All these, even the shows that we grew up in, it was packaged very nicely.
Yeah.
And this is like the family.
The white picket fence.
Today, this is not, these families, like the typical families, they're, you know, there's lots of different typical families.
Of course. That's true. But I feel like now even, not even that the differences in families, I don't see much family style TV anymore. Like, regardless of what the family structure looks like.
Yeah. It's
more so, I see a lot more shows now focused on the independent woman versus having a relationship and having a child. And a lot of people are steering away from the idea of children. And a lot of it does have to do with the cost of living. And that also stems from the push away from the idea of marriage and family, because you're now taking a home that would have two incomes to having one. And realistically, as a single parent household, it's hard.
Right.
To financially sustain a whole family.
Right. Well, even like today's sitcoms that we used to grow up with, they're gone.
Mm-hmm.
There's no replicas of them either. It's all very different today. My daughter watches this show, Jessie.
I don't know.
So it's like a little tiny replica of...
I'm in the Coco Melon stage right now. So I'm not up there yet.
Nanny? Except there's no parents. So the nanny has these like 4 children or 5 children running around, and all these children are adopted children. Mm-hmm. So they're all like different races and different nationalities and backgrounds, and except one biological child. Mm-hmm. But the parents are never around. So it's always the nanny, the butler, and these children, and they're all creating like all sorts of situations. So, and this is family. And this is what our children are watching as family. And there's lots of shows like that. There's one that's like has some superpowers. Like each one of the kid has some sort of a superpower. My mom and dad have superpowers. So it's just very, very out there. Like, we don't have the wholesome or like, you know, Full House type situations going on. Although in Full House there was no mom.
Right. Yeah.
There were 3 caregivers. For male. And then the aunt came along later, but
yeah. So there was a show, the recent one that I watched was This Is Us. And this is like, it started, I think, like 2017, and it went on for like a couple of seasons. So it was about 2 parents who, she was pregnant with triplets. One of the babies dies as she's giving birth. So, now they just have the 2 babies, but at the same time as the dad is looking at his 2 babies that were born, there was a little boy who was left at a fire station by his family. So they adopt him also. Uh-huh. He's of a different race. So now they're like all together, but they're always triplets. So they're celebrating their birthdays together. And so like the whole story is of how they grew up within that family and how they later like became adults and their stories of their families. And they brought up issues of infertility. There were issues of race. There were issues of everything. There was issues of the bachelor lifestyle of one of the siblings. And he was actually a celebrity in the show called The Manny. So it was a really good show, but I feel like
Manny, but that's also a show for the kids.
Is it? I don't know.
There is some show called Manny.
Oh, well, this was about like a male nanny. So he was like a celebrity, but the whole story basically focused on like, I guess, the modern idea of family and how it's changed over the years. So it's not like you're just like, it shows like they had the kids like in the 80s and now they're growing up in the 2000s. So it shows the differences of like how life changed from like from that type of, I guess, societal norms to how it is now. And I think it was a really great show. Like I watched it through for like a week. I think all the seasons.
There was trauma, I'm assuming, in that show. the parents had trauma because they lost one of the triplets. Then they brought in the baby. The baby probably had some sort of trauma.
He did. He later found his actual dad.
Right. So all this trauma, but how did this affect?
They still, like, it didn't really affect, I mean, it affected them all individually. Like, the adopted son was looking for his, he wanted to find his dad. And then it later turned out that the mom met the dad and she basically told him to stay away because he was on drugs at that point, but they let her, like, all reconciled. I mean, it affected them all little by little, but it didn't affect their parenting. They were all still, like, really great parents.
Oh, okay.
And there was, like, the ones that battled.
This is a TV show.
Yeah.
Where it's supposed to be. It's supposed to tie in.
They had
it's supposed to give you some sort of an emotional roller coaster.
I guess, yes.
And then, like, it's supposed to tie in some happy-go-lucky feelings where you leave the show and you're like, okay, well, everything.
Well, there was actually depression. The one of the triplets was a girl. Her husband was battling depression in the show, and he was on the medication for depression for like years. And then he had to get off of it because they were dealing with infertility. And that's when their relationship kind of started deteriorating. Right. They later divorced, and but they all still like stayed kind of together in each other's lives. And then the adopted son actually ended up fostering and adopting a girl also into his family. I mean, while it's a TV show, but I think like also, I mean, there was addiction. The celebrity one, he was like addicted to drugs heavily. So there was like a lot covered in that show. And I was like, it was all a mishmash because I watched it in a week. Like literally I was like, okay, that's it. I have to watch it. No, there's like 8
seasons?
Yeah, it was like 70 hours worth of show. Yeah. Yes.
Did you sleep?
I slept.
Did you?
Briefly, I did. But I did. I watched it. I couldn't stop watching it. I was like, oh my God, I love this show. And I was like,
was this during the time that you worked from home?
No, I was here, but I wasn't watching it. I wasn't watching it here. I would get home, I would put it on, and like all weekend through, I would go to sleep at like 12, 1 o'clock. Because I couldn't stop watching.
I feel like I heard about this show. I feel like some of my friends saw this show. I never saw this show.
You should watch it.
But that's not the point. The point is trauma. And I think that children who suffer trauma will have some sort of will cause some sort of traumatic situations for their own children. They carry this chip. And unless they're getting help and they're getting some sort of therapy, or they're doing what you said, which is like the
actualization.
Unless they're getting help and they're having some sort of self-reflection.
Yeah.
And some sort of self-help, which happens all the time as well. But if they're considering this to be the norm, I see lots of different families where you're like, kind of like looking and you're like, oh my God, like how does she talk like that to her child, or how does she do that with her child? And then you meet grandma.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've met families like that.
Of course, yes.
And then you meet the grandma and she's like talking the same way to her child.
Yeah.
So I think that they're definitely not independent. And I think that one often leads to the other.
I guess. But I think that there's also a lot of people who just, maybe it is self-actualization and like moving past it like internally without seeking help. Because I don't think everybody needs help for situations. Of course not. Like I think that some people just move on from it and they're like, that's it. Like that's not what I want out of my life.
Absolutely.
And that's it. And just like cut off everybody who is causing the stress and the drama in their life. And that's enough for them to kind of like move forward.
Right.
So, I mean, but I think like, a lot of the time for me personally, like, I mean, I thank God didn't have traumatic experiences or many of them, but still, like, I grew up in an immigrant family and, we came here. My parents were not like young teenagers who were able to like just get careers right away and start working. It was definitely, not easy, for them, and they were working a lot. But so for me personally, that I guess kind of reflected, it actually reflected negatively on me, not negatively in a negative way, it negated from that sense of like, I want to work all the time. I want to work particular hours and I want to be like around my child.
Immigrants are very, very specific. because they carry on their parents' guilt. Like, my parents brought me here so I can make something of myself. So I can't let my parents down. So I have to try 100 times extra and 10 times more than the native borns, because, you know, my parents went through this journey and now I'm here. So I have to do all the right things. So they actually, children of immigrants, not the children that were born here, but the children that came here with, so they themselves are also immigrants, but they were small enough to be raised here. They have a different set of rules to begin with, because they're very, very, very aware of their parents and why they're here and what their parents had to go through to get here. But I'm talking about that's like old immigrants, like our immigrant parents.
Yeah, because now it's, I think, a little different.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I guess in a sense, I do always say, like, my parents, and I bring it out a lot for people
Plus,
who...
my parents always said that I didn't bring you here for this. I brought you here to make something of yourself, not to, I
always talk to, like, some of my people I know, and they're like, oh my God, it's so hard, like, in America, like, they're like, it's so hard to make it here. And I'm like, well, why is it so hard to make it here? You were born here. You know the language. It should be easy for you. You have the opportunity to go to college. You have the opportunity to go to school. Like, everything is literally here for you to take. I was like, my parents came here with no language. They get with nothing, and they made something of themselves and they're successful. And I was like, so what is your excuse?
Right. Like, because we put our parents on this pedestal. Like, wow, you know, like, they came here and they had nothing and they made something of themselves, and it was all for us to be better and for us to have these opportunities. So it's a different mindset. So I can't let them down.
Right.
It's like a completely different mindset than, you know, the people who are like, oh my God, I don't want to do anything.
Yeah.
I'm just going to sit and watch.
This is just gonna sit and watch This Is Us for 80 hours. But it's all about balance. It's all about that work-life balance, I guess you could say. But yeah, I would put my son to sleep and I would just, like, binge. I do that. I still do that sometimes. Like, if my parents take him overnight, I'm like, okay, what show am I binging? And I will binge, like, literally 8 hours of a TV show. That's the way I relax.
Yeah. No, I can do, like, a movie. I can do a movie.
I can't do a movie. Anything that has to do with my self-diagnosed ADHD. Self-diagnosed, self-actualization. Because, like, if I'm watching a movie, I know I have to 100% be focused and I need to know what's going on. When you're watching a show, some of them, though, I feel like I won't even, like, touch my phone or get distracted because I'm so into it. But a show is, like, it's snippets, right? So you don't have to focus on it for 2.5 hours like you do a movie to get to the final thing, because there's like 100 episodes before we get to the whole conclusion of the show. And here you could get distracted. You could walk away. You could pick up your phone. You could look at reels. You could watch a podcast. But yeah, like for me to watch a movie, it's a lot harder, like to sit there and to focus for that long on the same thing happening.
Right.
Unless it's like a really good movie. That brings us into a attachment theory of parenting. The first attachments are actually formed before birth, and during the antenatal period, parents and carers can form a bond with their child. Any bonds that are formed before birth can have positive impact on the relationship between babies and their caregivers. There's bonds that are formed between birth up to 6 weeks old. They are the pre-attachment phase, because the baby doesn't appear to show an attachment to any specific caregiver at this point. And they are starting to learn about who is providing the nurturing environment and who is more responsive to their needs. And then from 6 weeks to 6 to 8 months, that's when the baby starts to show a preference for the person that they want to be and who they prefer as their secondary caregiver. And then from 6 to 18 months and 2 years, that's when they show a strong attachment to their primary caregiver. And then from 18 months to 2 years and onward, this is when they're likely to become less dependent on their primary caregiver. particularly if they feel secure and confident that the caregiver will return and be responsive in times of need. So I guess that does kind of relate to the article. If the caregiver is not there, they're kind of always going to feel like nobody's really there for them.
Nobody's there for them. And then when that 2-year-old stage comes, then like whatever, they don't care. They're in daycare or they're at the neighbors or they're by themselves.
Yeah.
Because nothing led up to them having that security.
Yeah, that's true.
But I have to be honest with you, this whole like attachment while you're pregnant, I don't know. I personally, I didn't have it.
No.
I didn't. Like, I knew I was pregnant.
Yeah.
And like, but I didn't like talk to my stomach. I didn't.
With all three?
I didn't, like, we weren't like friends.
You weren't friends with your baby yet?
We weren't friends. Like, I didn't do anything stupid.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I have a baby and like, you know, I took care of it took care of myself while I was pregnant. Because like, you take care of yourself, you take care of the baby, whatever. But I didn't try to form some sort of you know, like they like give it music and all that stuff. But also my children were like wild in there. Like literally wild. They were just running amok.
Yeah.
So it was very hard to like form some sort of bonds with them.
Yeah.
When you're trying to like, for your ribs not to break.
That's true. I did.
Yeah?
I talked.
You talked to the baby?
Yeah, I did. I talked to the baby. I used to listen to the heartbeat. I bought that device, but it's like so hard. I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. But I did also, like, we did a lot of sonograms, and I would always see like how he's becoming bigger and bigger. Yeah. And then we did a 3D sonogram, and I was like, oh my God, who does he look like? Me, of course.
No, of course I did all of that, and I was like very excited to see him on the sonogram, and I was like very excited when like I felt that, it was all great. But to actually like let's watch TV and like talk to the baby, I didn't do that. Like drive in the car and talk.
Well, no, I wasn't like constantly talking like, oh, hey, in there, what do you want to eat?
No, but like people do that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I did it.
People, so they can hear the sound of your voice, and the dad talks to the baby. Like it's a big to do.
Yeah, there is. Yeah,
and like they stroke the belly and all this stuff. I didn't do any of that. I was like, okay.
I did stroke it because it was in my way.
I was like, these are my ribs. I need
he was really chill. He was like chilled out. Now he's not. But he was like very calm, and like every time I tried to do a sonogram, he was sleeping. I had to like drink soda to wake him up.
So my son was too big, so he didn't have enough room. So he was always like bugging out. My daughter, she was okay, but she also liked to move around. And my youngest one, she was quiet during the day. It was at night when she really started partying it up, like 2 a.m. She was like, "Hey, let's get this party started."
Yeah.
And I remember I was telling my husband, I was like, "Watch, she's going to be born, and she's going to not sleep because it was always the same." Plus or minus an hour time frame when she would wake up and start like moving around and start having a party in there. And this is exactly what happened. Like during the day, everything is great. And at night, upside down. Upside down.
I never had sleep issues.
Lucky.
I didn't have sleep issues. I mean, I did co-sleep. Which will bring us to our methods. So my husband was working nights, so I was at home alone. I had a C-section, so I'm like, I don't want to like run around between rooms.
Yeah.
And so I got this Lalibu, it was called. Yeah. It was like the thing that pops out and has the borders, and I put it on my bed, and I put him in it, and we slept on the bed like that. And then every time he would cry, like wake up to eat, I would have my formula next to on them.
You had the ready-mades.
I had the powder, but I put the heating water inside the bottle heater. I put it inside my bedroom, plugged it in, and it had the glass bottle to warm the water. And then I would just plop the formula and shake it up and like.
But now it's even easier because they have the ready-mades.
That, and they also have now the machines that for the formula that dispenses it and mixes it for you, so you don't even. It came out when I had my son.
Wonderful.
It came out when I had my son, but because I was using the Holly and the HIP formula, at that time it wasn't recognizing it and wasn't measuring properly.
No, but now they do.
Now they have it. Yeah.
And it measures it has like the different that you're supposed to set it up before you start feeding the baby. And there's a setting for Holly and hip and all that.
Yeah, so back then they didn't have it. Well, back then it was not that long ago, but
still, you know what?
It changes.
It changes even like between my two daughters. Not a lot of time, right? Like 8 years, 9 years. It's not really a lot of time, but it's a world of difference.
Yeah. So
forget my son. He's like,
I remember some people had it. They were using it, and it was like not measuring out properly by size, and now it is. Yeah. So that's why I never got it, and but it did have the baby food maker. And then, so he was sleeping with me, and then COVID happens, and my husband he takes his FMLA for 3 months. So, he's like, I'm not sleeping in bed with a baby. So I had to put him in his crib. So I was like, oh my God, what's going to happen? I was so nervous. I was like, first of all, I'm so used to like waking up and seeing him right next to me. And it was like just easier. I'm like, how is he going to sleep on his own? So then I take him out of my bed, and he used to like nap in his crib during the day here and there. And I put him in his crib, and the first night he just like fell asleep. And I was like, this is great. I mean, he still woke up like several times for formula, but other than that, he just slept. And that was that.
So with my son, and this was like a long time ago, 17 years ago, but I did the cry out because it was a big thing. It was like popular, and they always like spoke about it, and there was always these like books on it, and that that's what you were supposed to do.
Yeah,
just cry them out, verbalize them. They coined them a term for it.
Yeah.
Verbalize your baby and I was like, okay, verbalize the baby.
Yeah.
So I did it. I did the cry out. It was long and it was hard. And at some point in time, I remember I would like sit outside his room and just like, cause I couldn't leave fully. And I would just sit outside and wait because I was like, oh my God, like he's going to choke while crying or something's going to happen. So that turned into, he had to be in the crib and somebody had to stand with him while he held your finger while he sleeps. And the minute you would take your finger out, he would start yelling again. So we went back to the crying out method. I mean, at some point this all ended in now we don't like.
Now you don't have to hold. He doesn't have to hold your finger while he sleeps.
He doesn't want to do anything. With my daughter, I mean, I didn't really. She just 6 weeks. She slept through the night. I didn't even know any cry out, not cry out. Like it was like, Sophie, time to go to sleep. Sophie went to sleep, and that was it. With this one, I don't know. This one is like a mix of both worlds, but I do co-sleep with her. And not because like I think it's so cute and cool and whatever, because I just at some point in time didn't want to stand next to the crib because I would have to get up for work the next day.
Yeah.
And it was just so much easier for me to take her out of the crib, put her beside me, and she just went to sleep with no problems, and she slept, I slept.
Yeah.
But I think I missed that window where I was supposed to have her in her crib.
Yeah.
Because now what ended up happening is that she gets put in her crib. She goes to sleep. She gets put in her crib. But then around the same time every night, which is like 1 a.m., she wakes up, and now she gets up and she's like, Mama. And that's it. And sometimes I'm like, no, go back to sleep. This is your bed. You have to go back to sleep. And she's like, no, because now she's talking. She's like, no. And I'm like, no, you sleep here. She goes, no, I sleep there. And she points to my bed, and I drag her in because I do not, again.
You're not going to stay up all night. Yeah.
I have to get up for work the next day, and I'm not going to stay up because she can take a nap during the day. I can't.
Right.
So is it the best? I don't know. I guess it has to work for your family.
I did sleep several times with my son. Sometimes I do when he's sick and like when he's not feeling well, especially if he's throwing up, because I'm still scared. Like, what if he chokes in his sleep? Right. So if he was like throwing up all day, I'll lay in his bed. Luckily, he's not in a toddler bed anymore. He's in a regular bed. So like, I'll put him to sleep, and then like once he'll fall asleep, I'll lay next to him. But it's hard because he's like, now he's moving around, he's kicking, he's like pushing me off the bed. He's like, get out of my room. But there's people who co-sleep until like the kids are like 10.
I know.
That's going to be you.
No.
Yes.
Do not say that. That is not going to be me. I plan on like, she's turning 2 soon. I plan on getting her out of my room, the crib out, her out.
You should.
I need to like sweep.
You know what
out.
it could be? There was like something I read that when it comes to co-sleeping, it could be that that they want a bed like yours. So that's why they don't want to go back to the crib.
I already did that. I took my pillow and I put it in her crib.
No.
Still not.
Put her in the regular bed and put her like the border. Like get her a regular like full size or twin size. Yeah.
Because right now she's in my room. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move her into my room. You're
going to have to move your bed into her room for some time.
No, I just want her in her room. I don't need her.
Yeah. But it's cute.
It is. Listen, honestly, does it make me like all like feel nice and cute? Sure. Do I sometimes just want to sleep in my own bed by myself any way I want? Yes. So like I think I need her. Like if I want to sleep with her, I can like bring her, but overall she needs to know that this is her bed, this is her room, and this is where she goes. Yeah. Because I'm telling you, like this is all foreign to me. Yeah. And the only reason why it happened is because I had to get up to work. And that's it. And she was a terrible sleeper, because if this was my first daughter, I would have no problems. Yeah. When I wouldn't even know what co-sleeping is. Yeah. I'm hoping that like soon I'll go down.
Well, hopefully you don't have to do the cry it out.
No, I'm not going to do cry out. I can't do cry out anymore.
Well, now, I mean, some people are still doing it. It's not like, but now I think that what they're doing is like.
Now they're bad mouthing it though.
They do. I think there's like two sides. There's like the bad side of like, this is not the right. There's some people that are saying that your child should sleep with you in bed until they're 7 to form the secure attachment. No, like I saw this and I Googled it. Like I saw it somewhere on Instagram in a reel. And they were saying that like to form psychologically for a child to form a secure attachment with their parent, like not to have mommy and daddy issues down later on in line, they have to sleep with you in bed until 7 years old. That's when their brain is fully developed to understand things. So that's what some people are saying. Some people are doing the cry it out, but I think now it's like more modified than it was like back then. Now it's like you do 15 seconds of them screaming, then you come in and you kind of keep doing that.
Imagine doing that all night.
No. You would have to start that like super early, but then like.
No, but like because that like with my son, I just remember he would just yell. Yeah. I think he would like exhaust himself and fall asleep. Yeah.
But it could be also like colic. I had that a few nights with my son. It was colic. Yeah. And so I was like, no, that whole night I did not sleep because it was just like literal screaming. And I called my husband and I'm like, you have to go to the store. On the way home, I was like, this is what I researched. I was like, and I'm like, and he's like, what's going on? I'm like, do you hear it? Do you hear it? He was like literally red, screaming like, rah! And I'm sitting there and it was so loud. Like he has like me, he's loud. And he's screaming and I'm like, oh my God, what do I do? And I'm trying to like, I'm like, I don't know. Like I'm here, like listen to baby Mozart. Nothing was working until I was like, get gripe water, get Mylicon. I said, I don't even care at this point if he's too young. Gripe water, Mylicon, and we got the probiotic drops. Yeah, BioGaia at that point was big. Yeah. So that's what I was dropping it. I dropped it into his formula. Literally 2 days later, nothing. Yeah. No screaming, sleeping through the night. But it happened like for 2 days, and I will never forget. I will never forget. Yeah, it's crazy. Like to hear.
It's terrible when they're just screaming. Yeah. For no, like for you, it's like no reason, but obviously they're in pain. And you can't do anything. Yeah. It's terrible. Yeah. Just want to do something for it to stop.
Yeah, I remember it was bad. It was so bad. I was like mentally exhausted.
Wanted to go back to it.
No.
Like that's like post-traumatic.
Yeah, that is post-traumatic. But I feel like, I feel like that's how it would feel with cry it out. Like if the baby, I don't think I could mentally handle cry it out.
I'm telling you, like today I would never be able to do it. Because I remember, I mean, maybe I was younger or whatever, but it didn't bother me. Like crying didn't bother me so much. Like the yelling didn't bother me so much. Like whatever, he'll yell for a little bit, then he'll calm down. Like whatever. Today, I'm like, no. No yelling, no screaming, no crying.
Yeah.
Just like serenity. We need serenity and peace.
Yeah, quiet, right?
But again, I think it has to work for the parents and the household and the families.
Yeah. Like, I just know myself, I wouldn't be able to handle the cried out. I would feel bad. I would feel bad, and I would end up co-sleeping until he was 7. That was me.
Good luck.
But luckily, there are some positives. Like, again, there's modified cried out that you're supposed to actually let them like cry a little bit. Like, you can't just run in, and for the second that they cry. That's what some people are saying. And then there's others that are saying, so there was Psychology Today released an article in No, it's called Psychology Today.
Oh.
It was released May 17th, 2024.
Oh, this is recent. Okay.
Yes. They're saying that letting babies cry it out it's an idea that's been out since the 1880s when the field of medicine was underdeveloped. And they're saying that this idea was developed because there was not enough medicine and babies shouldn't be touched. There was that risk of infection and that you should leave babies alone. This is when it all originated. They're saying that there was, again, in the 20th century, was revisited again, saying that this is the method that is preferred and should be used. And there was actually pamphlets that were given out to parents that were...
Like the Gerber method. Sounds very medical.
They were saying that if a mother's arm is tired, she should immediately stop rocking the baby and put them down.
This is probably the same time when they coined that whole refrigerator mom business.
What is that?
In what was it? 50s, 60s, when they first started identifying autism.
Mm-hmm.
And they said that the reason why children develop autism is because they have a refrigerator mom, which is a cold mom, which is a mom that withholds affection and withholds warmness and feelings, and is always like, you stay there, I stay here, and is very rigid.
Yeah.
So because of that, children are starting to develop autism. So they kind of shamed moms who weren't exactly very
affectionate.
Mm-hmm. They shamed them, and they coined up this term refrigerator mom.
Oh, wow. Never knew about that.
Yeah. There's that book that I read. I mean, then they debunked it, but for the time being, a lot of moms had this self-hate.
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah.
And they went to psychologists, and they would say because you're a refrigerator mom, and this happened because of you. Imagine the guilt.
Wow, that's crazy. Well, we've come a long way, but who knows? History does repeat itself, so it's gonna come out.
Hopefully not this.
It's gonna come out.
They can just go further.
Yeah. So with the cry it out, there's still behaviorists who come out with it kind of seesaws back and forth. Some behaviorists are saying they encourage parents to condition the baby to expect that their needs are not going to be met right away, and that it's normal, and that you should be in charge of the relationship as a parent.
Probably like Skinner using the Skinner box on his own daughter,
I guess. And they're basically saying that, if you are kind of always giving into your child's needs, even when they are a baby, that it's going to foster a whiny, unhappy, aggressive, and demanding child who has learned nothing but to scream to get their needs met. Mm-hmm. This was caregivers who habitually respond to the needs of the baby before the baby gets distressed, preventing crying, are more likely to have children who are independent than the opposite, actually. Mm-hmm. This was a study that came out in 1994. And they're saying that soothing care is best from the outset, and once patterns of distress gets established, it's much harder to change them. So once a child feels like they're in distress, it's harder to get them out of that distress. Right. So that's the other side that are saying to respond to your baby's needs right away.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
Because they get to that, they cross that threshold, and that's it. It's just blank.
Yeah.
They're just yelling. They don't even hear you. They're not even processing. They're not even doing anything. They're just yelling because they've gotten to that point where nothing is going to help them.
Yeah.
There's no more
it's hysteria.
Soothing. Yes, it's hysteria.
Yeah, I personally also think, an infant, they're so small.
How are they supposed to help themselves?
Right. You can't. Now, if you have a tantruming toddler, preschooler.
Honestly, if the child is 2, they already know, they know the word no. They know the word stop. They have all these cue words where you can redirect them. But I'm sorry, a 3-month-old, what are you supposed to do? Just let them scream their heads off?
Yeah.
Because otherwise, they're going to think that like you're coming to rescue them.
Yeah, right.
Feed them. I mean, most babies, that's why they're crying. They're wet, they're hungry, or they're thirsty, or they're sleepy.
Or their stomach hurts.
Or their stomach hurts. Realistically, like they're not trying to be terrible.
And then it would
be fun to get these two people from two different sides in one room. And just and like fireworks. Watch the fireworks happen.
Yeah, who wants to... Do we know anybody?
I don't know. We could do a little survey.
Yeah.
I'm sure we can find two people with opposing views.
Yeah, it's true.
And they could sit here, and then like they can like fireworks, and we can just watch.
Yeah.
What happens?
We should start call-ins for each side. Yeah. And then see what our viewers think.
Exactly. We could go live and have people like tell us what they think, and then we can watch those fireworks.
Yes.
I'm just being very naughty today.
We should do it. I think it's a great idea
today.
I think it's a great idea. And then also stemming from, these are some controversial topics we're covering today. There's the topic of pacifiers. Some people say, like, don't give them at all.
Yeah.
Some people say, give them.
See what your baby wants. I mean, if the baby doesn't want a pacifier, I would just stuff it in their mouth. If none of my children took a pacifier. Not a single one.
Yeah. I gave my son a pacifier because he wouldn't stop crying.
But they didn't. I gave it to them.
Oh, they spit it out.
They just threw them out, and they would never take it. When they were born, then I would give them to the nursery. They brought me back the babies with the pacifiers. I was like, okay, whatever. And then when I would bring the babies home, maybe like a day or two, on day 3, the pacifier was gone.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, even if they were to take the pacifier, they would scream with the pacifier in their mouth.
Yeah.
Just hang there.
Yeah.
They were screaming.
Yeah.
It's not a soothing mechanism for my children at all.
Yeah.
But I know some children it is. And I know that, and then you have the whole thing of taking away the pacifier, which is another ordeal. So you have a whole thing of giving the pacifier.
Yeah.
And then you have to do the reverse.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, so I thought, like, I was like, they don't want it. They don't have to have it.
I gave, but I wouldn't say he was like on it like all day long. Like he wasn't that interested in it. And I mainly gave it for like nap time and bedtime. And then one day I came and I would keep like just pacifiers in his crib and he would just grab one if he wanted one. And when so it was like already like right before we transitioned him to sleep on his own, he just had a bunch of pacifiers and he just kept taking it out of his mouth and throwing it out of the crib. So I just took them all and threw them out. And that was it. He never, like, I had no issues with it. Yeah, I had no issues. But there's kids who have a need and they're like, could be older, 5 years old, and they still take a pacifier.
Yeah. And then you have the whole problem that after the pacifier, if you take the pacifier away and they still need to self-soothe, guess what's going in the mouth? The thumb.
Oh, yeah.
And then you have a whole bunch of adults sucking their thumb.
I guess maybe that's what it was with the...
terrible.
Yeah, maybe that's what it was with the adults who are sucking on their thumbs.
And that corrodes your palate.
Yeah.
And your teeth.
Yeah.
Which is another So I would never force a pacifier.
Yeah.
I would never force a pacifier. If a child takes a pacifier, great. The minute they spit it out, I would never put it back.
Yeah.
Because you have like a cycle of events that come after.
I think it's like you have to catch it. You have to take it away at a specific like point, like a specific age before they realize what it is that they're using it for self-soothing.
Yeah.
Because when they're so small, they don't know. They're like, whatever, it's in their mouth. Yes, it's calming them down, whatever. But like once you get past that stage, it's almost like with sleep, right? When you're putting your kids to sleep. There's a specific time by which they have to, like with me, they have to be in bed, or it's that second wind, and then it's like disaster. So it's like almost like that. So if you don't catch it at the right time with the pacifier to take it away, you are going to struggle.
Yes.
And so like you need to find, and of course it's going to be different for every child, but I think like once your child is like actively taking it out of their mouth during nap and just throwing it, like hide it, take it away, throw it out.
They don't need it anymore.
Yeah.
They're taking it out themselves.
Yeah.
They don't need the self-soothing anymore.
Yeah. My son, the pacifier was fine. That was easy. I had a hard time getting him off of the baby bottle with milk.
Really?
He was like, he liked milk. He would drink it out of a straw cup.
Yeah.
But before bedtime, it was always a baby bottle. He had teeth. He was biting through them, and he would like want to just drink it, and that's how he would fall asleep.
Yeah, but that's how my daughter is, but I give her it in a sippy cup.
Yeah. He didn't want it out of a sippy cup. He would throw the sippy cup.
I threw all the bottles out.
Yeah. Well, I did too eventually. Then he just stopped drinking milk, and that was it.
She said there's no bottle.
Yeah.
It's like just a variety of different sippy cups.
I had also, and he would just refuse to drink milk out of anything besides a bottle. And then I was like, whatever, does he really need milk? He eats yogurt, he eats this, so we took away milk.
She takes milk before sleep.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Nap time, at nighttime, like she needs that bottle of milk and she asks for it.
Yeah.
So she goes, moko.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she gets it in a sippy cup.
Yeah.
There's
no, it was
bottle.
like, he was like, I tried to take it away, and then I think it was like at 2 years old. That's when I got rid of the bottle. But it took a while. Like, you're supposed to get rid of it.
That also corrodes your palate.
Yes.
Those like nipple things.
But not even the nipple things. It was like later he had like cavities, and it was all because of that milk. Even like no matter how much, like they had those like wipes that you could wipe the teeth off after, but it doesn't do anything.
No.
Then we spent a pretty penny on his teeth.
The sippy cup is different.
Yeah.
It doesn't leave the film that the bottle does.
Yeah.
The bottles are gone.
Yeah.
Even if she wants it, she can't have it.
Yeah.
But she wants the milk more than she wants the bottle.
That's true. Yeah, I don't think for him it was the milk. I think it was like the nipple and that suction. Because like once I took away the bottle, he didn't even want the milk.
Correct.
That was it.
But she wants the milk. So
yeah.
She gets it in a sippy cup.
Yeah.
That's why I always say you have to watch your baby.
Yeah.
Figure out what your baby wants.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not one fit all model.
It is true. That is very true.
The biggest new social fad is AI.
Mm-hmm.
We're learning how to use it. It's everywhere. And I came across on social media this social experiment with ChatGPT.
Mm-hmm.
So you were supposed to type into your ChatGPT the following. If you were the devil, how would you destroy the young mind of the next generation?
Mm-hmm.
And then the ChatGPT would give you these somewhat very, very accurate description of how the devil would destroy our future generations. So the following is what it came up with. Eroding the truth and critical thinking, glorifying superficiality, addiction to distraction, breaking families and communities, normalizing hopefulness, mocking virtue, and that's it. So it came out with 6 different subtopics of how the devil would destroy the minds of young children. Eroding truth and critical thinking.
Promote misinformation, suppress education, and discourage curiosity so that kids grow up unable to distinguish fact from fiction. Sounds like our news channels these days.
Sure. but also sounds like our school system.
It does sound like our school system.
Because all we're doing is studying for the test.
That, and they're also cutting out a lot of things these days so that everybody could be on the same level, essentially. So things that some kids don't understand, they're like, let's make sure nobody understands it. So let's just cut it out altogether. The cancel culture. Yeah. That's what it is.
Yes.
So it's already happening.
Yeah.
Because, and that has a lot to do with the media, the way that media is pushing certain agendas and certain topics, that I guess younger generation, because like we are not me, but because I'm older, I'm not gonna name my age, but the younger kids are growing up now on social media. They're growing up. We were growing up differently to where we had the news. You could buy a newspaper and read it. We didn't even know what Google was, you know.
But I also feel that the news before was a little bit more
diversified,
mm-hmm. and also less opinionated.
Yes.
Because I'm sorry, but now it's like 2 schools of thoughts. If you're watching Fox, you're one way.
Yeah.
You're watching CNN, you're another way. But there has to be something in the middle.
Yes.
And I have not found that yet.
And it's not only is it causing eroding truth and critical thinking, it's causing conflict. between people who don't agree with each other versus just sitting there and talking it out. Everybody gets so emotional about everything. It's true. And I think that the way that things are presented to young people is completely different than they were before. And it really is corroding, because now it's like they're either this way or that way. And that's it. And there's no in between. You cannot be in between. You either have to go this way or that way. And that's it.
So the next one is glorifying superficiality. And this is what I talk about before in the beginning of the podcast, which is it's all about fame. It's all about like the next best thing. It's all about these like TikToks and Instagram reels of famous people and or like people trying to be perfect. And then everybody else is like, oh my God, I want that. I want that. I need that. And it has the values are just gone. It's all of what I want, what I can get, what I need, and that's it.
Yes.
And it's not about how it can help me, how it can help others, how it will benefit, everyone, or at least some. It's only how it's going to benefit me.
Yeah. And the next one is addiction to distraction, which is to create tools and platforms that keep young minds constantly distracted, scrolling, comparing, consuming, leaving no space for reflection or real connection. That's your Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, not so much, because it has like the longer versions, Facebook Reels.
Plus YouTube, you have to actually find something.
Yeah, YouTube, you have to search. Here, it's like your algorithm just builds it. And I find myself too, like you'll sit there watching something and it just keeps constantly sucking you in.
And if you put something into your search engine, it'll pick it up
everywhere. Yeah.
And Instagram will pick it up, and then you'll get advertisement for it.
Do you know we were when I went to Kalahari last year, I was talking about it with Brett, and it popped up on my phone.
Oh yeah,
to book it, like on Instagram, on Facebook. Well, it's AI also.
Absolutely. Breaking families and communities.
Undermine the support system kids need: loving families, safe neighborhoods, good teachers, so they feel isolated and unsafe. Happening now too.
Yeah.
I think so. I think that there's so much division now between they say like rich and poor, right? But the news, the politicians, they're all coming out with this like you're either this way or that way, right? But what is everybody really doing to help the situations of children living in poverty? Nothing. We're just talking about it just to let's create this divide between people, right? So there is no more middle class. Forget about it. That doesn't even exist anymore. You're either rich or you're poor. That's it. I mean, that's how I feel. And I would say like I'm middle class, and I feel like we're like nobody to anybody, right? We're just taxes the max, and that's it. But yeah, and it causes such a divide, but nobody's really doing anything to help it. The newscast channels that are so opinionated, who are making millions, are they going into these neighborhoods and saying, here's some money to help you, let's build a center for these children? But nobody's doing that.
Right. Normalizing hopelessness.
It spread the belief that nothing matters, the world is doomed, and individuals can't make a difference.
Which is true. I remember like before, like everybody would make fun of the people who would go like abandon all their electronics and go live in the forest and just live off the earth with their like the Martian hats, the foil.
Doomsday preppers.
Yes. But now I think it's like the norm. It's the norm. Because it's always like, oh, do this, do that. Yeah. If you want this, do that. If you want to live like this, you have to give up this and that and whatever else. And you have a bunch of people running around thinking, that's it, we're doomed. The earth is going to explode. Yeah. And everybody's going to die. And like all these things are people just going at it. Yeah. Just not even listening to each other and just going at it.
Yeah, yeah. And the last one is mocking virtue, which is turn kindness into weakness, honesty into naivety, and integrity into foolishness. And then happening now too.
These are all the same thing, like all your TikToks and all your Instagrams where all the girls are like, oh, if you want to be cool, dress like this. Yeah. And if you want guys to like you, look like a clown.
Yeah.
It's like you need the crazy makeup and the crazy hair, and you need the certain kind of clothes.
Yeah.
And you need to act a certain way. And even like with this whole, like, the way they speak now in like letters and syllables, and it's like, what are you saying? What are you doing? In like some symbols, they show each other symbols.
Yeah, I heard about that.
And I'm like, well, what is this? Who can understand you?
Yeah.
I mean, that all time, that's all breaking things down and just mocking everything, mocking your family, because obviously your family doesn't understand what you're doing, talking in letters, A, L, W. Like, what are you saying?
And again, this also goes back to the differences in opinion, like turn honesty into naivety. So if you don't agree with somebody, they're like, oh, they're just stupid.
Right.
They don't know what they're talking about.
They don't.
Like, I know better. Yeah.
They didn't watch Fox. They didn't watch CNN.
Yes.
And they don't know. But it's like, but I thought that this was really cool because, like, so basically everything that we have going on right now is basically like the devil's watching.
Yeah. Last and final Netflix show of the episode, which is this week we watched Where Are YouTuber Piper Rochelle and Momager Tiffany Smith Now? So this was a documentary on Netflix.
So this I watched in one sitting.
Yes, that I also. It was short. It was only like 45 minutes an episode. I mean, like if I could watch 70 hours in a week, this was nothing. But it actually, that whole show ties into the social experiment. And not only did it put these children into like basically just like influencers, right? It isolated them from their families.
Yeah, one of them is still not speaking to his mother.
Right. So isolation from families. Believe that this is like in order for you to be in, because they were like kicking people out and then telling everybody unfollow them. So like that's also like breaking people down versus like trying to be like understanding, be like, okay, it doesn't work out. Like it is what it is. Like that's it. You break the relationship and it's over with. That doesn't mean you have to like hate each other and like trash each other on social media. Like it's crazy. And these were their kids. They were like 12, 13 years old.
Yeah.
It's insane. And I think that, the whole family model, and I think now, and I kind of like the parents of the children who were bad influenced into it. I think that's something to speak about too, because a lot of them were on the show. My question is like, where were you? This is your child.
Before I watched the show, I was just like very upset with the parents. And I was like, wait a minute, hold on. So now you're having this whole new show, this whole new Netflix show, speaking about what happened on the show that you gave consent to your children to be on.
Yeah.
So therefore, you must have known what's going on or saw some signs that something is off.
Some of them lived in that house that they rented.
Yes. And also you all collected some sort of fees.
Yes.
Like this wasn't just her that she collected the majority of it.
Right.
Yeah. Once like you got kicked off the show, obviously it all ended. But when you were on the show, you didn't find anything odd.
Well, yeah.
You didn't find anything odd. You didn't find it odd that your child was up at 2 a.m. doing stupid videos?
Right.
Was not odd to you?
Right.
I understand they wanted to do it, but children want to do a lot of silly things.
Right.
And we do say no.
Right.
We do say no. When that threshold is, crossed.
Right.
And you've had enough, or you don't agree with it, or you don't find it to be the right thing to do, you say no. I mean, that word no still exists.
Right. And it's gentle parenting.
So where was your no?
It wasn't there because the money was coming in.
Right. So I'm sorry, but like, yes, I felt bad for the children, because they probably didn't understand what's happening because they were little.
Yeah.
But their parents understood.
Yes.
And even if they didn't know the whole story, even if they didn't have all the puzzle pieces in place and they didn't have a clear picture, but you had something.
Yeah.
You had the night shootings. You had your children getting hurt. Your children, I am sure, came home and said, oh, I kissed this one.
Yeah.
And I'm 9.
But a lot of it was also like in the 3rd, 4th episode, there was a parent who lived in that house and their child lived in that house.
The one that shopped.
Yeah. And they were all living there. You see what's happening. A lot of the stuff was filmed in the house. So you're there.
Yeah.
Unless you just left your child to their own
devices. No, she said she lived in the house.
Right, but I'm saying...
Until she couldn't take it anymore.
Right.
that was 12 years.
Yeah.
Or something like that. It was
Yeah.
an obscene amount of years.
Yeah,
it wasn't a year.
Right.
Or,
it wasn't
or
like a
6
couple
months.
of months. Right.
It was like several years of you watching this, of you
I
knowing
think that
exactly what's going
it
on.
hit them when the children started isolating from them, like to the point where they probably didn't want anything to do with them, and that's when that all unraveled. And of course, like some of the kids that spoke out, that lived there, and they were like, they didn't realize they were children. I think I have nothing
fun.
Yeah, but the parents are the ones to blame, essentially.
Absolutely, I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. Like I said in the beginning, I was like, well, these parents are 100% to blame. And as I was watching the show, they're not 100% to blame, but I still put a large amount of blame on them.
Yeah.
Of course, like what she did was crazy.
Right. Yeah, it was.
Crazy. Like
nobody's denying that.
Like, if you want to do that to your own kid, you should be arrested.
Yeah.
And doing that to other kids, I don't even know. You should be double arrested.
Crazy. Yeah.
But where were you? You were the adults. Where were you?
Yeah.
What was she going to do? Okay, she cancels you from social media. You're part of the cancel culture now. But your family's intact. Your children are happy. Everything's okay.
Yeah.
Give me a break.
Yeah.
And on that note, thank you very much for watching. Until next time, please subscribe.
Don't forget to subscribe. Bye.